Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast. We're going to get started in just a second. Let me turn off some of this scrolling things. And welcome to those of you engaging in the chat. I appreciate that. Hey, one thing I like to start the trainings off with is just a little insight about who I am. And by the way, if you can give me AV checks, audio visual, just make sure you can hear me. That'd be good. But anyways, one thing I like to share, just a little glimpse into who I am, is if you don't know this, I was in the Army Airborne Rangers, and I remember when I learned how to jump and I was jumping out of airplanes. And the first jump I did, it was perfect. I jumped out and I did every single thing they taught us. I tucked in, the jump came away. 4 seconds later, my chute opened up. Everything was good to go, and I landed on the ground and I fell the way that I'm supposed to fall. And it was perfect. And then, thanks, Kami. And then I did my second jump. And I remember my second jump. I have a picture out there. You might see it in one of my posts somewhere. But I have this second jump where you just see my face is all damaged afterwards. And it's because when I jumped out, I was like, oh, I did this. I'm an airborne ranger. Like, I know what I'm doing. Actually, I wasn't even a ranger. I was an airborne at this time. In my second jump, I jumped out. And I was looking up. I'm like, I want to see what's going on. It's pretty cool to jump out of an airplane and you're seeing everything. So I jumped out, and not to get too gruesome, but long story short, the reason you keep your head down is because those straps that hold the parachute up, if you don't, when they're opening up, they whap right across your face and they knock your head back. And for me, I just got some little damage and, it was fine. But what it taught me was process is king. You hear me talk about process all the time in the government contracting space. But process is king when you're jumping out of an airplane. If you tuck right, you don't get hurt. If you keep yourself up and loose, you're going to get hurt. And so that's just some insight into me, or a little bit glimpse into me. Okay, I think we're good to go. I'm going to get rocking and rolling on today's training. Today's training, we're going to be talking about setting a strategic plan for 2024. It's best to set this in 2023, but it's never too late to set it again. And it's also something you can repeat in 2024 for 2025. So keep it in mind. Benjamin Franklin said a long, long time ago, he's been gone for a while, that failing to plan is planning to fail. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And the idea behind this is just so really basic. I love quotes and tips like this that are the minute somebody says it, you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. If I fail, if I don't plan, then I'm kind of planning and setting myself up for failure, right? And the idea, the way I like to equate it towards our strategic plan, and the reason we're doing this training is I like to say, if I change his quote around, I say, don't let success happen to you, make success happen, right? Don't let success happen, make it happen. Take control over your success, your future, your company's success, and you're going to have what you're looking for. So one thing I did want to mention is that we all need strategic plan. It doesn't matter what stage your business is at, whether you're just getting started, whether you're a $10 million firm, or whether you're a $100 million firm, or getting ready to graduate small to large. Freudian slip there. But my point is, everybody needs a strategic plan. What's in the plan, the numbers you set, et cetera, might change, but still the plan in government contracting, it's the same for a small business all the way up to a large business. You decide what we can do. That's the whole idea. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, as we move forward, I call it a 30-minute strategic plan because literally I'm going to teach you in 30 minutes. That's all the time I have. But I'm going to teach you in 30 minutes about how to create a strategic plan. And the idea also is I want you to minimize the amount of time it takes to create a strategic plan. Too often I see people spend weeks and months preparing for a plan. I'm like, stop it. Just spend a day at most and go, this is our plan. And so today I'm going to cover down on what is a strategic plan. When I say a strategic plan, what is that and why should we have one in place? And then fundamentally, these next 4 bullets that you see are the plan, right? And so I'm going to talk about strategic plan includes your revenue goal. So setting that goal, determining who do we sell to and what do we sell? And then fundamental to the success of anything, especially in government contracting, are relationships. And so a strategic plan will talk about what relationships are needed. And so that's what I'm going to cover down on in today's training. By the way, I'm curious, have you already put a plan in place? Put that into the chat, or Are you struggling to get it going? I'm curious at what level you're at. So if you feel comfortable putting it in the chat, let me know. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for your business. I'm sure that's what you want out of 2024 is repeatable, predictable success. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor and subscribe to the Government Contracting Success newsletter. It's my newsletter where I share a lot of content out there. I just shared a newsletter issue this morning. And in here, it was where I was laying down the 11 ways that a government buyer finds you or a federal buyer finds you. So I laid out in written form, and plus I put in a replay of training we've done on this. But that's an example of something that's in there in the newsletters where I'm able to bring information I've shared in multiple places about government contracting into one place. So subscribe to this. And then the other thing is we have over 140 people registered for today's training. I really appreciate those of you who did that. If that's you, thank you. If you didn't register, consider doing that tomorrow. We have training every single business day as we go forward through the year. And I've already got 3 more for the rest of the week lined up, 4 more. I don't even know what day this is. It's Monday or Tuesday. But we've got training all week long, and so you can go register. So make sure you register because LinkedIn will let you know and remind you about the training. But also LinkedIn will let other people in your network know about this training so we can continue to build our community. And the last thing is that invite others, right? If you're coming to the training, let a colleague know, let a friend or a teaming partner know that we're doing the training. Send them the invite. Say, hey, we're going to this training. I'd love to have you in there. There's a company called VTech, and I was just telling them yesterday, I feel like we got like 15 of the people in VTech solutions who are in our training. So if you're in VTech and you're in there, do a little shout out to yourself. Okay, so let's dive into what is a strategic plan. And really quick, I'm just checking again before I go too far, AV is good to go. Everything's good to go. Okay, that was the last. I'm looking at chat. I got to focus on the training and get this going. Okay, so when you think about a strategic plan, first off, I love strategic plans. Anybody who follows me on LinkedIn will know this because I share the government's strategic plans all the time. It's a great way to see insight into a federal agency, what they're trying to accomplish, maybe some challenges they're running into, and their reason for existing, their mission, right? And you want to do the same thing for your company. Set the vision for your business in 2024, your mission, your vision, where you're trying to take your company, right? And it doesn't have to be this overly complex thing. It doesn't have to take months. It just has to be, we want to go from here to here. That's our vision in 2024. Not necessarily the goal, right? Just a whole big idea of where we want to be. And then a strategic plan, it does come down to the next level, setting strategic goals. This is not in any level depth. Sometimes people call it blue sky thinking, where you're like, we're going to do this, right? And today, I'm only talking about sales goals. Your strategic plan might include things like, I want to get an ISO certification, or we want to do this thing that's going to be business maturity. You want to put some of that into your strategic plan. But what I focus on is federal sales. And so I'm only focused on a strategic set of goals that are around sales. And then the last thing is in your strategic plan, you want to break that down one level. So there's some objectives. There's a little bit of depth to those goals. So when you're looking at it, you can see it. I'm going to show you at the very end of this training that I use a 1-pager to have a strategic plan right in front of me. It's a wheel. I can put it on the wall, and at all times I can look and go, okay, I'm tracking on all this. Oh, you know what? I'm doing not enough on this part. Let me bring that up next week or next month. So those goals and objectives are on that wheel, and it's your strategic plan on 1 page. The last thing I put, and it's pretty ironic that I put 1 goal here, but a minute ago I said goals, but this is a bigger idea. The reason you want a strategic plan is so that you, if you're the entire team, or people in your company, if your company is 10 or 50 people, a couple hundred people, right? You want to have this came from Ford. Alan Mulally, I think is his name, former CEO from Ford. But he said, he introduced this idea of 1 team, 1 plan, 1 goal. And it was one of my most favorite quotes that I heard, because 1 team is, look, we're all on the same page. I was working with a customer today who we're going to be supporting 15 or so back office people. That's the back office people. Then they have billable people. That's 1 team. We want to bring everybody together as one team and let them know we're following one plan, this strategic plan. And we have this one overarching goal. And I'll show you in the last slide where I show you the wheel. But fundamentally, that one goal could be this growth step forward for our company from here to there. And so that's why we want a strategic plan in place, is so that when we talk among leadership, we're all on the same page. When we're trying to talk to our staff and the people who support us, we're able to clearly communicate where we're trying to go, where you're trying to go in 2024. When you have it written down, it makes it so easy to communicate. So really quickly, let's just talk about what a strategic plan is not. And I think this part here is why people get caught up on taking weeks and months to build a strategic plan for 1 year, right? And by the way, a 5-year plan for a business is set your goal at 5 million, then 10 million, then 50 million. But really, a 5-year plan should still be in the general same area of what you're doing. And I'll show you what I mean later. But the problem people have sometimes, and you may run into this, is you start thinking about all the how. If you say, I want to go from here to here, and you start thinking about the how while you're creating your strategic plan, you're going to get bogged down. Who cares about the how, right? I know the how's important. I get the how's important. But when you're setting a strategic plan, it's not about the how. It's about the where. Where are we going? It's about the vision of where we're taking the company, right? So it's not about the how, and it's not about the details of breaking everything down. If I say I'm going to get $1 million in the Army, it's like, well, what opportunities? Who cares? That's the pipeline. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we're saying we are getting money from the Army. And then the last thing, in my opinion, that the strategic plan should not be is many pages. Personally, I don't think it should be more than 1 page. But it sure should not be more than 2 or 3 pages, because anything more than that is an exercise in futility. Nobody will read it. Nobody will remember it, even if they do read it, right? When you think about throughout the whole year, who's going to come back to that strategic plan over and over and go, let me go through, let me look at all these pages. They're not. But if you have it on 1 page, it's on a wall, and you begin to get people encouraged to put it on the wall and to every morning start their day going, yep, there's our plan. Let's get going. 1 page really drives it forward. So strategic plan in business in GovCon, I believe, should just be 1 page, not many pages. Okay, so let's start diving into what's in the strategic plan, right? And by the way, I'm taking what I would do for 8 hours. People would bring me in, engage me in their company for an 8-hour dive into creating a strategic plan for them. I'm doing that all in like 20 minutes, 25 minutes here, right? So I'm going to be moving forward fast. If you got questions, let me know. I've done multiple trainings on how to set strategies, so you can go back and look at those as we go forward. So the first thing is you want to set your revenue goal. To me, that's fundamental. Yes, you like to do good work in the company, and yes, you want to do these other things, but a for-profit business's job is to make profit and to make money. And so what I do is I like to determine the goal. If I'm a $3 or $4 million company, I say $5 million. That's where I want to be. I'm $2.5 million. I'm going to be at $5 million in 2024. So when you set a goal, $5 million revenue goal, it drives every other goal, every other decision that you're making, because you look at that 5 million and go, well, how's that break down? And I'll show you. One thing I would like to encourage you to do is to focus on always making progress towards your goal instead of always feeling like a failure. The way you do this is to don't think about 2024 as an example. Don't set $5 million and say, I must or we must get $5 million in revenue by the end of 2024. If you do that, like that's an investor way of thinking, right? They don't figure out the momentum through the year. They just say, by the end of 2024, I want $5 million in revenue. I'm going to report to the IRS, we made $5 million in revenue this year. When you set a goal like that in January 2024, every month you move forward that you haven't made real progress, you not only are failing to meet that goal, but you're putting massive amount of pressure on your shoulders and your team's shoulders to get to that goal that is basically not going to be achieved. But if you say, I want to be at a $5 million run rate, is what I like to call it, right? If I want to be a $5 million company by the end of December 2024, what that means is I'm at a monthly recurring revenue of 600,000, I think, if I do my math quickly, right? I want to be billing $600,000 a month. If I'm billing $600,000 a month, then I'll be a $5 million company, right? And then next year, I guarantee we'll be telling the IRS I made $5 million, but now I'll set a new monthly recurring or annual recurring revenue rate. And so I call it a run rate, right? It's something to pay attention to is when you take that $5 million goal you have, then turn it into a monthly recurring revenue goal. Because one last way of looking at it, think about outside of a bank and they got a fundraiser going on in your local town. And as more and more people donate, the number, that thermometer keeps going up and that red line keeps going up. And the idea is everybody in town, when they drive by, can just keep seeing progress. But if you look at it a different way, you don't see the progress and you feel like a failure, right? If the only thing you have is we made 5 million and we didn't make 5 million, that progress thermometer never goes up. It either hits the goal or it misses it. And for the whole year, because we didn't hit it yet, we feel like we're failing. So avoid that pressure on yourself. The other thing about a revenue goal is make sure it's realistic. Too many people set unrealistic goals. They're not making any money at all. They go, I want to be a $5 million firm. I'm like, me too. Right? That'd be nice. I talked with a company this morning. It was funny. They reached out and they wanted to work with us or explore working with us. And they said that they're a $1 million company and their revenue goal for 2024 is $25 million. I was like, hey, I'd love to work with you. You're kind of a target customer of ours, but that revenue goal is unrealistic. So, we're not gonna do it. And they wrote back, oh my gosh, that was supposed to be 2.5, right? And that is a very realistic goal for a company of this size and this capability to do 150% growth, right? 1 million to 2.5 million. That's a realistic goal. Going from 1 million to 10 million is not a realistic goal. I'm not opposed to trying to hit stretch goals like that, but if you're doing a strategic plan, set yourself up for good jumps forward. The other thing is when you have a revenue goal, the next goal you want to be paying attention to related to money is your sales goal. For most of us, for all of us on the service side, we should be thinking 5 years, 5-year period of performance. So that's what a 5-year pop on the right-hand side here means, right? Is you want to look at your revenue goal, 5 million, and say your sales goal is 25 million, theoretically, right? Because 5 years or 25 million divided by 5 is $5 million a year. And so don't forget to set your sales goal 5 times higher than your revenue goal if you're in the services side and get multi-year contracts like those of us in professional services, IT, et cetera. And the last thing is, as you're setting your revenue goals, look at the 3 revenue streams. I have a whole separate training on this, but the 3 revenue streams are subcontracting under a small, prime contracting with an agency, is subcontracting under a large. When you're at the right stage, you should be making money from each one of them. So set a revenue goal for each one of them. And for many of us, it's 0 for large subcontracting. It might even be 0 for prime contracting. You're a brand new company under $3 million. I would set all of your revenue goal on subcontracting under small businesses. Companies that are like 100 million, 80 million and below that are still small, right? And so there's a lot of $10, $20 million firms that you can team up with. But set those goals for all 3 revenue streams so and I'll show you in a minute when you have that on your one pager, where you're getting that money from. By the way, just if you're engaging in the chat, I'm curious on some questions. If you have set a revenue goal, you don't have to tell me what it is because most people will not. But have you set a revenue goal for 2024? Do you know how much money you want to make in 2024? And the other thing to keep in mind is if you don't know that, then how can you make it? Like how will any of the activity matter, right? So make sure you set that goal. That way you understand what your activity is leading to. So the next thing you want to be asking is, what do you sell, right? And if you're saying how much do we want to make, here's our revenue goal. The next thing in your strategic plan is, what do we sell? You have to double down on making sure that you have a clear, focused offer. This is what you sell. It's easy for people to understand and it's niched down and focused. We call that a clear, focused offer. We also call this a core competency. Your core competency needs to be niched down. It needs to be your specialty. And that's why I say, what are you best at, right? When you think about what you're doing, what are you best at? What are you getting paid for is another way to say what you're best at, right? That third bullet, and I should have put W-2, not WS. But W-2, 1099, subcontracting, and prime, I don't care where you got paid for it. If you're just getting into government contracting, you might be looking at where you've been getting paid, W-2 or 1099 as a consultant. If you've already been in a little bit, maybe you're doing subcontracting or you're prime contracting. But look at where you're making money as an employee, as a government contractor, whatever. What are you getting paid for? What could you go get a job for? And you should really consider, that's what we sell, right? That's what we're best at. The other thing to keep in mind is if you do several things that you're kind of good at and they're related, maybe in construction, you got multiple things. Like we had a customer who was doing elevators and flooring and painting and some of these other things. And when we had the conversation with them, elevator profit margin was much higher. And as we had the conversation, through that conversation, they went, you know what? I'm going to double down on elevators. And because they did, they were able to drive forward in that next year towards whatever they were trying to achieve, saw a lot more opportunities related to a higher profit margin. Again, right? We're in a for-profit business. I'm not trying to make us money hounds, but a for-profit business should be making money so that we can pay ourselves, pay our employees, be good in our community. The last question I have for you, just on what do you sell, right? If you think you have a core competency that is a clear, focused offer, have you niched down enough, right? Have you niched down from constructions to like elevators? Have you niched down from IT or software development into SharePoint is the example I use. I have a friend who has a company, $100 million a year company, and all he does is data analytics. Data analytics, right? It's amazing. And I know so many companies that are like 5 and 10 million that do data analytics, they do cyber, they do cloud, they do software development, they do all these things. They are not focused. But when you focus, you have the ability to grow a $100 million company in elevators, in sign language, in data. So think about your offering and make sure it's niched down enough. The next thing is you want to understand who your customers are going to be. So how much do we want to make is the revenue goal? What do we sell? Now, who do we sell it to? So who are your customers going to be? Remember that I talked about there's 3 revenue streams. Those are your customers, right? Small businesses are your customer when you're subcontracting. Larges are your customer when you're subcontracting. And then obviously the agencies. So pick a target agency, right? You want to pick one agency. In my opinion, if you're not above 5 million, 10 million, staying in one agency is perfect. I advise people who've got traction in the Army to just go all in on the Army. Give you a quick example. If you're an 8A company, the Army last year, or ID is 2022 full data, but in 2022, the Army did $2 billion set aside or sole sourced to 8A small businesses. There's like 6,000 8A small businesses, and the Army did $2 billion set aside with them, sole source set aside, right? Either one, set aside or sole source. They did $2 billion. They are one of the most friendly out there. So I don't need a customer of mine who's an 8A company, for example, who's got Army traction to look anywhere else. The hard part is focusing on that agency and going in and developing the relationships that lead to the money, not chasing opportunities everywhere. So who your customers are going to be are the ones you're really going to target. That's why I say target an agency. And quick example of niching down on a customer, right? If you come into the government contracting world, if you're in government contracting, you go, hey, the federal market, that's who I sell to. All right, let's niche down, right? Well, you know what? I sell to the Department of Defense, not the civilian agencies, but Department of Defense. It's like, okay, well, niche it down even more. The Department of Defense has multiple services. I sell to the Navy. You can go down even further. The Navy has 10 buying commands. You can say, I don't sell just to the Navy. I come down below that to Naval Sea Systems Command, NAVC. So I'm working my way down. Inside of NAVC, the warfare centers, naval undersea warfare centers and naval surface warfare centers, they spend billions. They have billions in spend out there, and a ton of it was smalls. I could niche down even further, especially if I have specialties that they need, right? They're really looking for emerging technology and some of these other services. You can go in and look at it, but any agency you look at, you can begin to go, how can I niche down? So that's something to keep in mind on your strategic plan, is really understand who am I selling to. And so let me show it to you visually, right? This is what I was trying to work through. And this is where I talk about relationships as well, right? What relationships do I need? This is the wheel. This is an example of a wheel, right? So it can be different colors or whatever. But the idea of it is, in the middle, I'm setting a $10 million goal for 2023. This is a little older, right? But 2024 goal, $10 million. What I ask myself is subcontracting and priming, what's that split look like? And so here I'm saying, how much money do I want? Now, where am I getting it from? And when I look at the priming, I then say, which agencies am I getting it from? And you can see and follow this through that I say, well, which commands am I getting it from? And by the way, the reason I have, Air Force, Navy, and Army and Navy are $0 is because I'm looking at a 5-year strategy saying, I want to start off in the Air Force where I'm strong, but I definitely want to do cyber over in the Navy and cyber in the Army. So I'm going to eventually go that direction. But for 2020, 2024, 2023 here, my goal is 0 there, but I'm going to get the 3 million from the Air Force and from the 4th estate, right? These type of places. And then the same thing on subcontracting. I say I'm going to get 7 million. Well, where am I getting that? Well, what I'm suggesting is that I'm going to get 3 million from small businesses, right? I always suggest you team with smalls and you team with larges. When you're ready, team with larges. Don't go there too early. But in here, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to break that subcontracting and I'm committing to our company where we're planning, our strategic plan says we're going to get $4 million of revenue from large prime subcontracting and $3 million from small business subcontracting. By the way, I happen to just target 8A small businesses because I like that. I can find an 8A who's also a woman-owned small business, who's also a HUBZone, who's also an SDVO, and I can spread it out, right? That's not today's training. But you can see that split in the large primes. You can see me go in and say, these are the large primes I have some relationships with or who are aligned most with the Air Force that I want to get into, as an example, right? So I'm tying it all back together, saying this is who I want these relationships from. And the last part of the wheel, right? Remember, I'm saying, what's my revenue goals? Where am I getting it? Like who's buying it? And what am I selling? And I'm selling in these service areas. And I might say, look, I sell cloud service and cyber service. And in fact, down here, you see where it says cyber and it says zero trust. I'm narrowing or niching down even cybersecurity to say, you know what? We're going to go all in on trying to be a zero trust architect for the government. Same thing on the cloud, right? We don't do Microsoft stuff. We do Amazon Web Services. That's the play we're at. And really, what we really want is application modernization. So we want to find legacy apps and bring them into the cloud type thing. So in one page, I'm able to see where we're trying to go. And I can use this even in weekly meetings and say, are we on track for this? When somebody comes in and they're talking about Department of Justice or they're talking about the Army, I can go, why are you talking about that? Our target is the Air Force and our target are these defense agencies, right? That kind of focus allows us to stay on track. So here's what I want you to remember coming out of today's training, besides put a plan in place, right? When you put a plan in place, you really want to make sure you know what do you sell, right? Be really clear about your core competency and what you sell, what you're best at. The second thing is determine who you sell to in those 3 revenue streams. What small businesses do we want to sell to? What agencies are we targeting? What large businesses are we targeting, if any at all, right? And then the third thing I want you to remember is that when you're looking at that, set your revenue goals. What are your revenue goals? And then what are your sales goals? Sales goals are always bigger than revenue goals because generally 5-year period of performance type thing. But when you put this in place, it's going to enable you to determine where you want to go, your destination for the end of 2024. And you will begin to, after that, do the roadmap to get to your destination. It makes it so easier to build a roadmap when you have a destination defined, right? Hey, if you're looking to grow your company to the next level in the federal market and you're doing $1 million plus, love to work with you. Check out our govconchamber.com website /workshop. You can go check out our workshop over there and learn more about how we work with customers. Typically, it's with companies doing $1 million plus. For all of us, as you head into today, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.